Civil War is a really good movie. I'm going to be talking about the story here, so here's a fair spoiler warning. Now, I know I've been gone for a while. I haven't made a video in months. My life has just been a little upside down right now, so I just had to take a little break, but I want to get back into making more videos, and I figured this is a good way to get back into it, because I saw this movie and I was like, holy shit, this is fucking awesome. In this story, we see America engulfed in a civil war. 19 states have seceded from the Union, with California and Texas forming the Western Forces, with Florida and a bunch of surrounding southern states forming the Florida Alliance. And we follow a group of war correspondents who are traveling to DC in an attempt to interview the president and take a picture of him before the Western forces launch an all-out assault on the White House. So one of the things this film has going for it is how much it doesn't tell us. There are many questions intentionally left unanswered by the time the credits roll. I realize that the film is less about connecting the dots to form clear conclusions about this conflict and more about dealing with the downfall of America as we know it. Now, we have an election coming up here in the United States, and to be honest, I thought this was going to be very politically charged with, Republicans being bad and wokeness over here and all that. Fortunately, that's not the case here. We don't know how the nation got to this point, or even the motivations of the different factions. And so the lines get blurry as the story develops, because you'll see people fighting, but you're unclear about which side is which. With the actual American Civil War, there was a clear-cut issue that divided the nation. However, in this film, we don't really see any flashbacks to the onset of the war, so you're left thinking that it likely wasn't just one issue that led to this point. We're given a few clues as to what might have brought this on. There was an Antifa massacre, the president is currently in a third term, he disbanded the FBI, and has launched airstrikes on American citizens. So it seems like the government might have veered into authoritarian territory, and this conflict was sort of a response to that, especially considering that the Western forces are comprised of two states that couldn't be farther apart politically. But again, it's not clear. It could be something else entirely. And that's the point. And also with the actual American Civil War, the government were the good guys, and ultimately the Union was preserved. But with this film, it's unclear who are the quote-unquote good guys and who are the bad guys. And the country isn't exactly preserved by the end of this film. The story is set somewhere around the midpoint of this conflict, not necessarily the beginnings or the final stages of it. It seems as though the people in this film are past the initial shock and awe of the war. They've made peace with where society is right now, and everyone is just kind of coping with the war in their own ways. Furthermore, the president is only really in a few scenes, at the beginning and at the end. 99% of this film is focused on these journalists and their journey. So much is open to speculation. We don't have something to be constantly linking anything we see to, just a pure in-the-moment experience. As I mentioned, the story follows a group of war journalists who are making their way to DC, and they're documenting the fight as they go. Kirsten Dunst is our main character. She plays Lee Smith, and her performance is top tier. She's a hardened war correspondent who is dead set on getting a shot of the president, and she's famous for being on the front lines all over the world and doesn't really have an opinion of the war. She, along with the rest of the characters, are kind of just there to take photographs in a neutral way. In DC, journalists are shot on sight as they're seen as combatants, so it's a dangerous mission. And it seemed more like the characters were not necessarily trying to report the war, but document it. Every performance is good, but Kirsten Dunst pulled off dread and hopelessness the best. And she also lets us in to see that there's still a part of her that is somewhat optimistic, like that scene where she tries on a dress and forgets about life even for just a brief while. And this story, surprisingly, is a road trip story, and I didn't expect that. This provided a lot of comic relief and avoided the predictable route, which is having the protagonist be perhaps a group of militia making their way through the gridlock, or maybe a family trying to survive in a town that's gone to shit without law and order, or something like that. But we can't see the entire country. We can only catch a glimpse of it along the way. And that's why having it be a road trip is sort of smart, to get to see this in a natural way. We get to see how the war has affected people. You have normal people just sitting there with their guns, killing people that are trying to steal from them. You got a town of people under watchful guard that choose to ignore the conflict and just try to live normal lives. You have people being slaughtered for unknown reasons. And I liked how eerily vacant the country felt. Like, even though there are people that we see, it seems like the majority of common people are just trying to live with their families in as much isolation as possible. The film does have subtle ways of showing the collapse of society. You know, money isn't as valuable anymore. People in major cities are struggling for water rations. In almost every scene, there's some kind of destruction in the background. America is essentially lawless. We see police in major cities, but aside from major cities, it's sort of every man for himself. And a lot of people are fine with being brutal and barbaric, and that's the most terrifying part of the story. Not necessarily the giant action sequences and the fighting, it's the common people that have sort of turned. And the film is very intense, the action scenes especially. There is one scene where our characters are caught by two men who have killed a significant amount of civilians. They're wearing soldiers' uniform, but it's unclear if they're loyalist soldiers, or they're part of the Western forces, or they're just random people. Jesse Plemons plays this minor role, but holy fucking shit, I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. He just came in and just stole the entire scene. And this scene is great because it's intense without being overly bloody or overly violent. Because our main characters are journalists, throughout the film there are countless still photographs that the characters take, and these very brief pauses really puts the audience in a place that's sort of looking at this war sometime in the future. Like, seeing these photographs sprinkled throughout the film makes it seem like we're reading about the Second American Civil War and seeing photos of the conflict in textbooks or online. And it's frightening to try to imagine yourself in a world like this. If it was hard to put the country back together 160 years ago, imagine the challenge this time. Once society sort of crumbles and becomes more primal, people change. This film has come out during a time when a lot of us feel like the country is too divided and falling apart, and had this film been one-sided, it would be polarizing. I don't think that was this film's goal. This film left a major impact on me. I can't shake it. I certainly won't be forgetting it because it made me reflect so much, and it leaves you feeling somewhat hopeless. With the way this film ends, it's just like, where do we go from here? Is it possible to come back from something like this? And I think this film wants to serve as a warning as opposed to a how-to manual for plunging the nation into chaos. And this film almost makes you feel like you've seen what's possible, so it's hard to forget. You know, it's like the film is painting a picture without painting a picture. Everything we see could be the result of a number of things we don't know, but a line has been crossed. There is no going back to normalcy after something like this, and just like that, the United States of America has now become torn apart from the inside. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe to the channel. I'd be more than appreciative if you did. Have a great day, and I will see y'all next time. Take care, everybody. Stay safe.